Barry, all of your hit singles have been slow songs, ballads, except for It's a Miracle. And almost all the others have done better on the charts, just a little bit better than It's a Miracle did. Do you think there's a moral in that story?
Yeah, probably. Probably. I don't know whether I'm happy or unhappy about that. People ask me about that, you know. I really don't want to get known as a balladeer. I really don't. It just seems that the ballads that I do have more of an emotional impact than the up-tempo stuff, you know, and I enjoy doing that up-tempo stuff. I really don't want to be a crooner. The hits that I've had that have been ballads have been just one of 10 songs on an album, on each album. And it's not, you know, it's not an album full of love songs, you know, and it's not an old-fashioned ballad album. It just happened to be the ballads, you know. And again, it just happened to be the ones that made it, you know. I will take a hit record if I'm singing Happy Birthday on it, you know.
Well, that's the question. Now, right away, you're faced with this. How much are you willing to do what the public wants to hear compared to what you want to hear?
As long as they want to hear it, I will be doing it.
Something that your biographical material quotes you as saying is, I'm trying to bring back intelligent music. How does that differ from what you hear when you go into a record store or turn on the radio today?
Well, actually, when I made that statement, it was about a year and a half ago, and I've been listening to the radio a little more these days. And what I meant by that was that I like to listen to records that have, or that at least seem to have been well thought out, instead of just a group getting up there and jamming and lucking into a hit record, you know. And I was getting a little bored with the same 4 chords and the same baby, 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 oh baby, oh baby, oh baby, for as long as I can remember. That's all I hear, you know. All I heard. And so when I said intelligent, I don't mean to sound hoity-toity. I don't mean to sound greater than thou, but I meant that I would like to hear records that I know have been thought about, songs that a real live lyricist sat down and wrote to, instead of somebody who just came up with an interesting hook line, you know. So when I was talking about intelligent lyrics and intelligent music, it's just Tom Bell did it, you know, for the Spinners. I think he pulled it off. I think the Spinners are doing fantastic albums, you know, and I think it's basically because of Tom Bell.
What are some other artists or groups that you hear today, not counting Barry Manilow, whose music you would say is well thought out or intelligent?
I think Eric Carmen. I think Melissa Manchester. The people that Clive signs just happen. I mean, they happen to be my favorite artists at this point. They really do, except for the black groups, which Clive, I guess, hasn't gotten around to yet. The OJs and the people that are coming out of Philadelphia. I love that as a combination of gut music and also somebody who is thinking it out, and that is the best for me. That is you can't top that, you know.
To identify Clive a little more closely, he is
Clive Davis. He's the president of Arista Records, whom I am signed to, and he's quite a man. He's a legend in his own time, you know. He used to be the president of Columbia Records, and now he took over for Bell Records, and he changed the name from Bell Records to Arista Records, and I was one of the 2 artists that he kept on the label. Don't ask me why, but there I was laying on his desk one afternoon with my face on an album cover, and he said, "What's that?" And he kept me, Melissa Manchester, and the Bay City Rollers.
You mentioned Eric Carmen. When All By Myself came out, his first hit single, a bunch of people around AFN said, "Gee, sounds like Barry Manilow." I'm sure you've heard that before.
I felt the same way. But listen, you know, the stronger the label gets, the stronger I get. You know, if Arista becomes another Columbia Records, that just means that they got a lot more clout in the industry. I don't think he's ripping me off on purpose. I don't think he's ripping me off at all. He said just another, it just happened to be a ballad. Did you ever listen to that whole album? It sounds nothing like All By Myself at all. It's just great. It's a fabulous rock and roll album. All By Myself just happened to be a ballad, and it happened to be on the same label, and it happened to be a guy sitting at the piano singing nice, you know.
Here is a great chance that we don't have very often, our chance to check Casey Kasem's authenticity. A lot of us get some of our information about pop music from that, and one of the things that he said a couple of times about Mandy is that it was originally titled Brandy. Was that before you got a hold of it, or?
Yes.
What is the story behind that?
Well, Clive showed me that song. He showed me Mandy, as Brandy. Scott English and Richard Kerr wrote this song, and when they wrote it, they called it Brandy. And they were singing it very up-tempo. They sang, "Oh, Brandy, well, you came and you gave," very fast, very fast. And it was a little, you couldn't really understand it too much. I went into the studio and I tried it just like that because Clive showed me the demo. I said, well, if he showed it to me that way, that's probably what he wants to hear on a record. So I went in and I recorded it just like that. And in the middle of the session, Ronnie, my co-producer, Ron Dante, and I looked at each other and said, listen, I don't care what it is. I ain't going to have a hit record with that, you know. So we slowed it down. And when we slowed it down, we realized that we were onto something. And so we changed the name from Brandy to Mandy because there had already been a big hit record called Brandy. We just didn't want to get in its way, so we changed it from Brandy to Mandy.
You first made kind of a splash as a singer of successful commercial jingles. That's a business or a field that, if you believe what you read in TV Guide, is supposed to have a bit of money in it if you get good at it. You go into a studio and record "You Deserve a Break Today" in a 3-hour session, and then the royalty checks roll in for 27 years, or so the story goes anyway. Why would a person who was having some success with that, as you were, decide to leave that and go out on the road and go and endure one-nighters and put his talent and his ego and money and everything else on the line to be Barry Manilow?
I never was doing it for real. For a career. I did it to make money. I did it as a way to be able to do something that I really wanted to do, which was arrange. At that point, I just wanted to be an arranger. I never really wanted to be a singer at all. It never, ever entered my mind until 2 years ago. Never even dawned on me when I was growing up, or even when I was in the industry, when I was 25 years old or something. I never had any ambitions to do this. I was going to be Nelson Riddle. I was going to be him. I was going to be Burt Bacharach when I grew up. I wanted to find myself a singer and conduct and arrange. And in order for me to do that, I had to make some money. And so instead of playing in a bar, I would arrange or write or sing on commercials. And they absolutely paid a fortune. Once you luck into the singing part of the commercials, not the writing, the singing part of it, they pay you residuals for every time it ran. And I lucked into the Pepsi spot and the Kentucky Fried Chicken spot and the State Farm Insurance thing. I wrote that one. And the Stridex Pimple Cream thing. I wrote that and I sing on that. I mean, I made a fortune on that. And I took it all and I invested it in my own career. But I never really thought about being a singer. And the commercials I did to make some money. It was better than playing in a bar while I waited for my turn at the podium, you know.
Well, when was it that you turned around and you decided, well, maybe instead of an arranger, singer is where it is?
I was given the opportunity to produce Bette Midler's first album, or co-produce Bette Midler's first album at least. They had gone in and tried, since I was her arranger and conductor on the road. Joel Dorn had gone in and tried to do the producing of her first album, and they worked on it for about 8 months, and they finally listened back to the whole thing, and they said, well, it's close, but it's not all there. It misses the live excitement that somehow she gets on a stage, you know. It was real nice, but it wasn't everything. And they called me after we had done a concert at Carnegie Hall. They called me and they said, why don't you give it a try? I had never produced anything in my life. And I wound up doing half the album. And we got a gold album for it. And it was the most exciting experience I had gotten a taste of it in jingles when I was doing jingles in the studio, and this was the epitome. Being in the recording studio, being the head, being the producer and the arranger, and I just was in seventh heaven in the recording studio. I wanted to get back into the recording studio. Even after we finished Bette's thing, I said, get me back in there because I never had such a good time. So I decided, when I met Ron Dante is my co-producer, like I said, and he's a jingle singer. We both met on a jingle, and both of us decided to go in and produce me because we just wanted to be in the studio. And it started to switch from then on because Bell Records, when they signed me, would not give me an album deal unless I promised to go on the road and promote the album and sing and get up. And I had no ambitions of doing that, but I wanted to be in the studio so badly that I said, all right, I'll try it. I'll try it for a year. And here we are.
When you were producing Bette Midler, the idea of taking a 1940s World War II song like Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy and doing it in the 1970s would not occur to a lot of people in the music biz. How did that turn into a hit single?
That's strange. Bette used to do that even before she met me. Well, I was playing for her for a long time, but she had been working for a year even before she met me, and she had come up with Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy by herself. She loved the title. She thought the title was hysterical. And And both of us went, and she went into the studio, and they put down the 3 voices on her album. Joel Dorn produced it. Only it was sort of what I don't know, maybe I'm saying things out of school, but when I listened to that album cut, I think it's sort of slipshod. She never really got the harmonies down on the album cut. We came over to London, however, and we were supposed to do Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy on the Burt Bacharach special that they were taping in London. And the London Musicians Union wouldn't let her lip sync to the record, so we had to re-record the whole song for this television show. And she had never learned to sing the harmonies. They had just gone in and she had sung one harmony, and they had futzed around with it so that they got 3 voices, and it sounded really nice on the album, but not. Anyway, I had to sit down with her, and she had to learn the harmonies note for note, and we re-recorded the whole thing for the Burt Bacharach show. And it just so happened that Ahmet Ertegun, the president of Atlantic Records, was in London the day that we did it. And he heard the track coming back, and he said, "That is a hit record. That don't sound anything like the album. That's a hit record." So we took the little tape that we did on the Burt Bacharach special, and we put it on the single, and we released it. And that was the single.
When you found Bette Midler, did you really think you had found your Dionne Warwick?
Absolutely. I figured that if Bette would go on to movies or televisions and I was going to lose my job, if that ever happened, I would go on to Liza Minnelli, or I would go on to somebody else. The last thing I would have thought of was going on to Barry Manilow.
How does somebody train to become a writer or a singer of commercial jingles? There are not too many high school or college courses in that subject.
No, you can't learn that there. You got to. It's by fire. I got a phone call one afternoon to see if I would try. Would I try out for a Dodge commercial in the States? And because they had heard a tape of somebody singing a song that I had written. And I wrote it, and the thing ran for 5 minutes and 20 seconds or something. I mean, I didn't know how to write a jingle from a hole in the wall. And little by little, they still liked this particular jingle company, liked the way I wrote, and so they instructed me on how to do it. Now, you've got to get it done in 30 seconds, and the lyric has got to be simpler. And I agree, a lot of jingles are pretty awful. But there is a craft to it, and the good ones are written by professionals.
Somebody has said, I don't know how long ago, that commercial jingles are the real true pop music of today, that there are probably more people who know You Deserve a Break Today than know Mandy. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I agree. I don't think it's true pop music because, I mean, I certainly wouldn't listen to it on my own. I wouldn't listen to You Deserve a Break Today instead of Paul McCartney's thing. But it's true because you can pay for it on radio and TV. You get to hear it more. Which is easier, writing hit records and trying to get a record company to release them, or writing hit commercial jingles? They're both very difficult, you know. They both work on the same premise, too, because you've got to communicate with an enormous audience. And the idea's got to be universal. The melody has got to be Deep in the Heart of Texas, and the lyric has got to be Tie Yellow Ribbon on the Old Oak Tree. And so the people that now you tell me, I know that in my soul. In order to get a number one record, I have got to do that. I've got to somehow conform to that because that's what reaches the biggest audience. I can't do that, though. I cannot write Tie Yellow Ribbon around the Old Oak Tree. I can't write those words, and I can't write that Deep in the Heart of Texas melody. So what I've got to be able to do is to write something that is catchy and memorable, and yet something that I could stand behind, you know, or sing something that I know is not terrible. It's not crap, you know. Something based on a Chopin piano composition. Well, that was very sophisticated. That was a fluke. I think that it was a hit record in the States, you know, and I think it was a fluke. I am ecstatic about the fact that actually made it because I will stand behind that 100%. But we're talking about Could It Be Magic? It's one of my favorite song that I ever wrote, you know, but I never, ever thought that would actually be a single record. I figured that would be for a special, certain amount of people that would understand what I was trying to do. I was very happy when that happened. You've produced your own or co-produced your own material. You've done this for Bette Midler. How does a person take a bunch of pieces of music, some of them your own compositions in your case, and say, this one is a hit record and that one isn't? I don't. The hit records that I've had have come from an album's worth of material. I think I select 10 songs, 4 or 5 out of which I think might have a chance of becoming hit records. But I only I record songs because I like the songs, either other people's material or my own. I put them down because they feel good to do, and then I show them to Clive, and Clive shows them around, and we all pick the one that gets the most positive reaction. You know, I don't do it on purpose. Don't ask me. I don't know what a hit record is.
When you started out as a solo performer, you had already been in the music business about 10 years. How did this make things different for you than if you'd been in the music biz about 10 weeks or about 10 months?
Yeah, emotionally is what, I mean, experience-wise, of course, but I think I probably could have found the right people to do that. It's the emotional thing that I find is the difference. Because if I was 16 years old and having all the success all of a sudden, I'd probably freak out and go on dope and have thousands of girls, and I just go bananas, you know. And that's not what I do. I have had 10 years of experience in this business, and it's a job. It's fabulous, but it's a job. And I like to consider the fact that I am a pro. I am a professional. I have worked hard enough to get that title, and I'm not going to freak out. I live where I always lived. I have the same friends. I have the same people. You know, I don't want to change my life. I like my life.
It's just the bank account that's good.
It's the bank account, but I also, you know, I like to reinvest it in my own career, you know.
You are 28 or 29 now?
I'm going to be 30 in June.
Well, you are about the right age to have grown up with the TV show that was called American Bandstand.
Mm-hmm.
And this is now on the weekends, but it used to be on 5 days a week coming from Philadelphia. And when it did, it had a theme song that was actually a big band tune that was done by Les Elgart and his orchestra. And it was called Bandstand Boogie. They've changed the theme now, but someone who had grown up with it then would probably recognize it. And on your current album, you have put words to this.
Yeah, that was just a joke. Me and my friend Bruce Sussman sat down and decided to write words to the old American Bandstand theme. Actually, they still play it. They open the show with a version of Bandstand Boogie done on a Moog synthesizer, which is so out of place. It doesn't get you going or anything, but I imagine if they wanted to sound modern. And they close the show these days with my version of Bandstand Boogie. I do one of those on every album, it seems. I record one of those old-fashioned jitterbug things, you know, and I've overdubbed my voice 32 times. I like to sound like the whole band. It's fabulous.
Now, that song is almost in the category of jazz, and you have done some other jazz things in the past, things that were done by this jazz vocal trio of the late 50s and early 60s, Lambert, Hendricks, and Ross, and some other things. Jazz is supposed to be kind of not a very popular mass audience kind of music today. Have your audiences heard that rumor, or how do they receive it?
I get a lot of fan mail on Avenue C and Cloudburst and the things that I recorded in that idiom, and I get a lot of, I can usually judge what's going on with my career by the fan mail because I read a lot of it. I can't read all of it because these days it's getting crazy, you know. But I like to read a lot of it because I can usually figure out what's affecting who, and you know, what am I doing? Am I doing anything right, or are they hating it? You know, and a lot of it keeps commenting keeps commenting on that music, on the Avenue C music. So I think it's okay. I think I must be communicating with somebody.
How much of that can you get away with doing in a live performance before the audience begins to say ho hum?
Oh, I don't know, but I only do one. I choose one to do, and that's it. Because I'm not. I love that music, but that's not where it's at. Where it's at is 1976, folks. That's where it's at.
Let me hit you with another one of your old quotations. You said, I would describe my following as very straight ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that's true. I look out into the audience, and I think that everybody out in my audience is probably has a good hi-fi set. You know what I mean? They all are dressed nice. They're screaming and yelling because they're really excited about the music and about the show and everything. But I have the strange feeling that I could probably hold a decent conversation with them all.
How do you write? What is the process for you?
I like to write from a lyric that either I have written, or a lyric that I have collaborated with, or a lyric that my collaborators have just given me. But that's my favorite way. I set the lyric on the piano, and if it sings to me, I put it on tape. You know, I just sing it and I play it. You know, and sometimes it comes out in 5 minutes, and sometimes it takes days. sometimes with very few people I can actually work on a song together at the same time in a room and battering it back and forth, but I don't like to do that too much.
Now you have written songs in collaboration with several people. It's kind of unusual, it seems kind of unusual, compared to a writer who will, like Bacharach, get with Hal David and they'll write forever and ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, because I think there's the people that I choose have a lot of ideas. And I like some type of ideas from this guy named Enoch Anderson, who writes story songs, what I like to call story songs. He wrote Sandra, and he wrote I Want to Be Somebody's Baby, and he wrote You're Leaving Too Soon, and She's a Star. And they've all got a little story to them, you know. And Marty Panzer writes these very heavy emotional things that just get me in the gut, you know, and sometimes he overdoes it, but they're just fabulous. A lot of people just love his work. And then Adrian Anderson, who is a little more artistic than I like than the others. You know. So I love to work with all of them because they give me different feelings, you know.
How many of the songs that you do or that you write the lyrics to would you say would get into the autobiographical area?
Just about all of them. Just about all of them, Bill. I can relate to nearly just about every song that I see. It's coming out of my mouth these days. If I was writing for somebody else, I could probably write about going off to China or something, but I couldn't sing a song about going off to China because I never did it, you know, and I would feel very strange doing it. So the songs that I sing, since they have to come from me, well, I have to sing them. I have to be able to know how to relate to them.
What about the cut on your current album called A Nice Boy Like Me?
Well, I mean, we've all been there. We've all been to singles bars, you know. I read that lyric. I said, right, Nick, you got it. You know, I'll write a song to that. I can relate to that.
Is that a specific bar that you've been to? Do you visualize a place when you sing that?
Oh, sure. No, it's just the setting. I visualize a setting, not a specific place. But, you know, walking around uptight, we've all been there.
You were really kind of a street kid by your own description. How does that fit in with learning to play music, be a musician?
I think the thing the street taught me was the struggle. I come from the slums of Brooklyn, Williamsburg, Brooklyn, New York, and you can't get any rougher than that. And as far as the music was always there. I would have been a musician if I had come from Teaneck, New Jersey, or London. I know if I were born the way I am born, I would be in music somehow. But what the street taught me and what the slums taught me was the struggle, and I love struggling. I still love struggling, even though I seem to have been very lucky over the last couple of years. I could very well live without being one of the top artists in the country. The thing that I love about it is getting there. I love the struggle. I just don't think that I will ever get lazy, because if I get lazy, I'll get bored and my work will suffer for it.
On your current album, Trying to Get the Feeling Again, your co-producer you mentioned before is Ron Dante, and as you said, you were both jingle singers, but he was also something else. He was the lead singer of a group called the Archies.
He was the lead singer of a lot of groups that you never heard of. That you never heard of, but also that you don't know of. Like Tracy, you know.
The Cufflinks?
He was the Cufflinks. That was all him. He was the Archies, he was the Cufflinks, he was the Detergents from Leader of the Laundromat. That was, years ago. That's the... Yeah, he used to be Burt Bacharach's demo singer. He's a fantastic singer, and he makes us fortunate singing commercials.
Well, now, there is not too much on that album that he co-produced that is likely to be mistaken for Sugar Sugar. That would seem kind of unlikely to some people.
No, but you see, what he contributes is that commercial sound, that hit record sound, because, I mean, I know that without Ronnie, I would be making a very artistic-sounding album, because I am not geared to the top 40 radio stations, really, you know. I would probably go on for about 20 minutes on one song, you know. And maybe one day I will, but in the beginning it doesn't pay to do that. I mean, you make an artistic album on your first album out of, before people love it, and then they never hear from you again, you know. And so the thing to do is to get hit records, you know, and Ronnie has shown me a lot about the mixing a hit record, and he's never really gotten in my way artistically, never. I probably would have put up a fight if he did, you know, but I think he gives me that third eye about what it sounds like, you know.
Trying to Get the Feeling Again is up well in the upper reaches of the charts. Have you thought about the next single yet?
I just finished a new album. I'm just in the middle of finishing it, as a matter of fact. We just have a couple of finishing touches to do. There are about 4 songs on the album that could be single records. I don't know what a single record is. I mean, I know what I like, you know. I would have released probably things that never would have made it, you know. But so I play cuts for different people, and the most unanimous reaction, I'm sorry to say, is a ballad again, another ballad. I'm going to fall asleep if I put another ballad.
What are some titles we might hear in the future?
It's a beautiful ballad. It's a beautiful one. There's one called This One's For You, which me and Marty wrote, and there's another one that's called Weekend in New England, which a man named Randy Edelman wrote, who is a very good writer who I met years ago, and we recorded his song, and you never know. You never know. Listen for it.
We will. In the meantime, I'd like to listen to the current one. Can you tell us any background on Trying to Get the Feeling?
Yeah, it's very interesting. When Bette Midler was putting her last act together, the Clams on the Half Shell Review, which opened in New York and then toured a little bit, she came over to my house, and she hadn't put anything together yet, so she just threw a whole bunch of sheet music in front of me and said, "Okay, let's work a little bit." I had offered to play piano for her again, not on the show, but just to rehearse her, because it was the first time ever working with anybody other than me, and so I said, "Okay, just to get your feet wet, come over to the apartment and we'll just play a little bit." She came over and she threw hundreds of pieces of music that she wanted to try at me, from old Motown stuff to brand new things, and one of them was this song called Trying to Get the Feeling by David Pomerantz, and I played it for her, and I freaked out. I said, "Bette, where did you get this?" She said, "Oh, I really don't like it too much, and it doesn't go anywhere." I said, "Really, you don't like it too much, huh?" "Yeah, okay, good." And I put it aside, and I kept it, because I love this song. I love this song. And I called her the next week, and I said, "Remember that song, Trying to Get the Feeling?" I said, "Do you really don't like it too much?" She said, "Yeah, I really." I said, "I'm going to record it. Do you mind?" "Oh, no." She said, "Fine, just tell me when you do it." And I recorded it. And that's what happened. And I called her up, and I said, I recorded it. It's coming out of the single. She was real happy. She called me from Vegas, and she heard it.
Thank you very much.